over there, at least from the air. No ground troops, of course. And it appears that early objectives have been accomplished, particularly the assassination of Khamenei. But the thing about a regime change move, and that's what this is, let's make no bones about that, is that the consequences are not foreseeable. All kinds of things can happen. I think the odds are that this will work well, but they're not guaranteed. And, sectarian violence could break out. We're not sure who's going to take over. Somebody's got to. We're not even sure that the whole regime will fall. We don't know what the disposition yet is of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So there's an awful lot of variables here. And if they go badly, as they have in previous regime change situations, the political success of this would be greatly endangered. I'm hoping that won't happen, but it's possible.
You know, we've seen Democrats come out. You just saw Bill's piece, Jim Himes, a Democrat from Connecticut. This is a war of choice with no strategic endgame. Goes on that everything I've heard from the administration before and after these strikes on Iran confirms it's a war of choice. He says, as I expressed to Secretary Rubio when he briefed the Gang of Eight, military action in this region almost never ends well for the United States. You have Alyssa Slotkin saying that Trump hasn't made the case to the American
nonsense. He's made the case completely.
Some of these statements.
And the dictator is dead.
Saying she's against a regime change.
Shame on you people, you Democrats. And shame on you, Thomas Massey. If what is true as I've heard that you were against this strike, shame on you. You're not representing us here in Northern Kentucky, I can tell you that.
Membership overwhelmingly despises Donald Trump. It's been called Trump derangement syndrome, and there's something to that. And the result is that these Democrats, with rare exceptions, John Fetterman today, of course, was the one we just heard from, are opposed to this because they feel they must be. That they feel their job in life is to resist and oppose Donald Trump in every way, almost no matter what he does. So I think that accounts for the political reaction on the Democratic side here.
Shame on them.
Those who are critical may feel vindicated if things start to go badly, but if they don't, they're going to be stuck with this. They're going to be the people that it will be argued were, didn't want to take this evil Iranian regime down.
Right.
If the Iranian regime goes down and things turn out well in Iran, that will be a burden around their necks.
Right. It should be around the Democrats. Shame on them.
Big decisions.
And I used to be one. Shame on them.
Well, the saying is fortune favors the bold, and the one thing you got to say about this president, he's nothing if not bold. And this was a bold move in today's.
He's a doer. Get the job done. Stand up for what's right and godly principles. He does it. And his team is even greater.
I think the Iranians were pretty sure that they were going to do some more talking and have more negotiating, and they felt perfectly comfortable getting together in daylight to have a meeting, and that they felt confident they weren't going to get hit, and they got hit all right.
By the way, today is the 35th anniversary of the end of the Gulf War. Something we covered. Britt, as always, thank you.
By eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
We are attacking the Americans' bases, military bases in the region, and military installations and facilities. And this is only as an act of self-defense. We think that we are fully prepared for that, even more prepared than previous time, the 12-day war.
Long day that started with daytime strikes in Iran that really decapitated that regime. President Trump taking to Truth Social saying Ayatollah Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he or the other leaders that had been killed along with him could do. And there are, according to the Israelis, some 40 who have been taken out by these strikes. And it's just the beginning, we're told. Let's bring in our panel. The 5 co-hosts, former Tennessee Congressman Harold Ford Jr., Fox News White House correspondent, anchor of Fox News Live, Aisha Hasni, and Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen. Mark, history will remember this day, definitely. And the Ayatollah has been somebody who has been the center of a lot of focus for decades.
Now, this is the greatest day in American foreign policy since the fall of the Berlin Wall. This is such a consequential moment. And, if you think about it, we're celebrating the semi-quincentennial of our country. Over that time, there have been 45 American presidents, 47 presidencies, but Grover Cleveland and Trump served twice. And of those, a very small handful have truly changed the world. You can look at Ronald Reagan with the fall of communism. You can look at FDR with the defeat of Hitler and the defeat of fascism. Donald Trump is going to stake his place today as one of the most consequential commanders-in-chief in American history. And it's important to remember, this could have gone very badly. We just saw
absolutely
where he gave the Medal of
Thank
Honor
goodness and thank the Lord.
Helicopter pilot who carried out that mission to get Maduro. That was an incredibly risky decision by the president. If that helicopter had gone down, it could have been his Desert One. The risk involved in this operation was 10 times that, and he didn't flinch. He made the right decision, and he's going to change the world because of it.
I mean, I think your words are very powerful. I think the caveat here is we're on day one, and officials are telling us it could last 2 or 3 weeks. So we have a lot of getting through to get through. But I appreciate the comments. Aisha, why the negotiations fell down? The Iranians are, talking at the UN. The foreign minister was on TV today, and the president talked about that. Take a listen.
I don't know why the United States, why President Trump just missed that opportunity. Ask the Foreign Minister of Oman how close we were to get a deal.
We warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it.
Yeah, Aisha, first of all, I commend people to watch that 8 minutes. We played it 4 or 5 times today throughout the day, but it really explains where the president's thought process is on this decision, but specifically about the negotiations, I'm wondering.
And I think the president was extremely transparent in the last couple of weeks as we have seen these talks go on. I
Absolutely.
With, people close to the nuclear talks late last night, probably just 3 hours before these strikes began in Iran, and the mood was not good, Brett. It was one of defeat, one of frustration, and it was becoming very clear to these folks that the U.S. was going to strike. It was just a matter of when. And according to my sources in the region, it was really a big hang-up over enrichment. That was the breaking point here. And my sources were telling me that Iran was willing to stop stockpiling. They were willing to allow UN and U.S. inspectors into the country, which they've never let happen before, but they weren't willing to stop enrichment. And now there are reports today, Brett, that the U.S. even offered Iran free nuclear fuel forever, and they refused. So it was very clear to this administration and perhaps negotiators, maybe for quite some time, that these talks were going nowhere.
Politics factors into everything, even in the middle of action like this. Lawmakers weighing in, Harold, on this. Take a listen. Okay. Trust me that the lawmakers have weighed in on this today on a lot of different fronts, Democrats and Republicans along party lines. Harold, where do you see this? I mean, we're at the beginning stages of this.
Well, first off, you've done a great job today. Thanks for having me on the network, really having to rework everything to accommodate this. I'd say 2 things. We're less than 20 hours in. I think Mark's appraisal of this and Aisha's are spot on in so many ways, but we shouldn't allow ourselves to not forget how your follow-up was to Mark. We're still very early here. We will disrupt the Iranians. There's no question about that. But the fundamental question after that is how much does this alter the equation, change the equation in Iran? There are 90 million people there. We have to ask the question, what kind of leadership do they want? I heard the president, and I thought the most salient and powerful part of that 8 minutes you referred to earlier, Brett, was him asking the Iranians to stand up and to offer new leadership. 2, we have to think about the Powell Doctrine, one big part of it, which is how do you justify this at home? The president has supporters who are suspicious, skeptical of long entanglements overseas, including his own vice president. How does the stock market react? I thought Kevin Book's reaction about maybe 60 cents to $1 increases in gasoline if things go in the worst possible way. And I think the third question is our global coalition. How does that stand together and how does that stay together here? But ultimately, the president and his team are going to have to say to the country, explain to the country, and express to the country how long we're going to be into this and what result we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, as promised, the lawmakers were talking today. Take a listen.
I commend President Trump for making the difficult but absolutely necessary decision to join our partners in Israel.
Amen.
An awful lot like it could be Iraq War 2.0. One, a lie about nuclear weapons, and two, no plan whatsoever for what comes next.
This is going to not end well for Iran, and that there will be peace in the Middle East after this.
Have they been communicating? No, they haven't been. I mean, it's not even close. Not only with us, but with the American people.
Mark, I think we've learned that the military side of things can really handle a lot, as we saw with Venezuela and other operations, Midnight Hammer and others. One would think that there are multiple plans and multiple off-ramps in this whole operation.
Sure, absolutely. And look, what Donald Trump is doing is forging a new way to lead on the world stage in the wake of Iraq and Afghanistan. When Ronald Reagan came in after the Vietnam War, there was no appetite for boots on the ground, so he forged the Reagan Doctrine by supporting freedom movements around the world to challenge the Soviet Union. Donald Trump has come in after Afghanistan and Iraq, where there's no appetite for American boots on the ground, and our choice is to retreat from the world or to lead in a different way, and that's what he's doing here. He's leading from the air. The ground forces in Iran are the Iranian people. And they're going to have their role to play. And that's what he was talking about today in that statement. So this is a new way of leading, and we got to give him time to work it out because it's very important that we continue to lead.
It's a historic day. Panel, thanks so much.
It is a historic day in my 82-year life. And I'm thrilled that the president has done what he's done. The best move possible with God's help and godly principles.
Hoping that they may be able to step in, but nobody is going to stick their neck out until they know this regime has fallen. The thing that I'm watching for right now, though, is whether Donald Trump is trying to pull off another Venezuela. In other words, decapitate the regime, as we have just seen today, 40 top leaders gone, and then try to find out who the pragmatists are a little bit further down the chain who might be willing to work with the United States and to keep things stable until a new regime can be put into place, voted in by the Iranian people. I don't know which way we go here, but I don't think we're going to see people stick their necks out right now knowing that the regime is willing to kill 30, 40,000 people on the streets for protesting their oppressive regime.
Yeah, stick their necks out to get their heads chopped off. Jonathan and Ali, thank you very much. Good to see both of you. And coming up, Tomahawk missiles and one-way attack drones, how the U.S. helped take out Iran's supreme leader. Details next. Ministry reporting now that its airport has been hit by a suicide drone. Now, this is after Iran hit Kuwait's airport, Abu Dhabi, and there are reports that Dubai's airport has also been struck by one of these suicide drones. Here with me now, Navy vet and Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson, along with Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer. All right, gentlemen, a lot to unpack here. Let's start with you, Dakota. Like, you've been in these very difficult situations. You know that there are Americans out there, many of them, who fear, as happy as they are that this regime seems to have been decapitated, they fear a protracted conflict in the Middle East stemming from these joint strikes, Israel and the United States working together. Your reaction to everything you've seen today and those concerns?
Look, here's what I think is I think we can all agree that a nuclear Iran is not safe for the entire world, and at some point someone's going to have to deal with this. I think that the timing is incredible because we have a strong leadership as well as a strong military, and we've seen over the past couple months what we are capable of when we have both of those together. So while there might be concerns and everybody could be concerned, I think we have to sit back and wait. But what we have seen is an efficiency at everything that they have done so far when it comes to these types of situations.
Congressman Jackson, the intel that we at least now know that Israel and the United States had to pinpoint the exact location of the Iranian leadership at the exact 3 different sites hit simultaneously in broad daylight. What should that tell the American people about the precise nature of this planning?
Well, it should tell the American people, Laura, and all of our adversaries, once again, President Trump has reiterated and has proven that he's not like any other president we've had before. He's going to take necessary action, even if it means proactively going after a terrorist, country like this that wreaks havoc all over the world. He's going to do what's necessary. And this intelligence out there has probably been out there for a long time. We've probably had opportunities to do this in the past, but we've never had somebody willing to pull the trigger and do it. So I'm really glad that President Trump stepped up to the plate and did this. As Dakota mentioned, the timing was perfect. They went out of their way to make sure they were doing it in the middle of the day, which they were not expecting, because we usually fight at night, and we didn't now. And they got them while they were all together at a meeting and killed at least 40 of their top IRGC and government intelligence officials, as well as the Supreme Leader and the leader of IRGC, their leader for their intelligence service, and many, many more. So they've been decapitated. I mean, they have no one left to turn to anymore. Russia and China are obviously willing to help them. All of their proxies are staying quiet right now because they know they'll be exterminated if they poke their head up right now. And all of the Arab states that are also have traditionally been enemies of theirs are all with us. So they are on their knees right now, and we just have to continue to do whatever's necessary for the next few days or the next few weeks or however long this takes to make this stick. And then we have to pray to God and do everything that we can that they get a regime in there that wants to be a neighbor to all the Arab states that are in the area, and a neighbor to Israel, and wants to be a friend, not an enemy, to the United States and the rest of the world.
Yeah, we sure hope that's the case. Dakota, we're learning tonight that the U.S. Patriot missile system used over our Air Force base in Qatar has been wildly successful. Again, Americans see that we spend $1.1 trillion annually now on our military, but from the F-35 to these Patriot missile systems, this has been, as right now, a tour de force of defense and, again, precision with how these systems are being operated and the execution of this strategy.
Yeah, Laura, I want you to understand that the men and women who wear the nation's cloth have always been the best human beings and the most capable human beings that not only the United States of America has to offer, but that walk the face of the planet. And what we are now seeing is that we have leadership who are willing and allowing them to go out and to do what they are capable of. And I think that this is tax dollars well spent, and I think we should all be thankful that we have such men and women who are willing to go out and do the nation's bidding like we've seen over the last couple months.
Amen.
And a commander-in-chief who knows what he's doing with top leadership in our cabinet. Congressman and Dakota, thank you both very much. All right, coming up, how close was Iran to having a nuclear weapon? There's a debate about that, but what we know next. This is a Fox News alert. As Iran is striking airports across the Middle East, Israel is launching a new wave of attacks targeting Iran's ballistic missiles and aerial defense systems. We don't have an indication yet of when the U.S. will resume its own strikes, but President Trump today refusing to back down, writing on Truth Social that they will continue these strikes uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Now, this coming 8 months after the U.S. launched Operation Midnight Hammer, targeting Iran's nuclear program. Now, at the time, President Trump said the program was obliterated. But Bloomberg was reporting this weekend that Iran has been conducting, quote, regular and unexplained activity at bomb uranium enrichment sites, citing United Nations atomic inspectors. Here with me to comment on this, try to make some sense of it, is Alireza Jafarazda, as Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of National Council of Resistance of Iran. Alireza, what's going on here? Like, we hear the program was obliterated, and then we hear about irregular activity, and, you know, there are a lot of people who are, kind of saying, what do you believe here? Is this just kind of a pretext, or was this really happening? And what could they have been doing after those extensive strikes in the summer?
Well, Laura, first of all, let me congratulate you, everybody, the people of Iran, the whole world, for the elimination of Khamenei. This is certainly a very important day. Now, when it comes to the nuclear weapons program of the regime, when we first had a press conference right here in Washington in August 2002, exposing the nuclear site in Natanz and a whole host of other sites, the world really had an opportunity to end the program because it was in the earlier stages. But unfortunately, the appeasement policy opened doors for the Iran regime as the whole world was watching. They expanded the program and extended it to various sites, various projects. They were working on weaponization. They had really the full program. And then, of course, the attacks came in June. That doesn't mean that they, as far as the regime is concerned, they abandoned their program at all. Because, you know, the regime had spent $2 trillion. That's a lot of money. That's bigger than all the oil revenue that Iran generated since the mullahs came to power. Why would they want to do that? Because it's the tool for the survival of the regime. So they were trying to, this was like the last-ditch effort to try to see how they can rebuild, rectify, and revive their nuclear weapons program of the regime. And of course, it tells you how desperate this regime has been. So that's the only thing they relied on.
Alireza, thank you very much. And coming up, the pop-up protests and celebrations, plus President Trump's endgame. What is it? And how long will it take to actually get there?
Don't let congestion take over. Afrinotrin. Wow, ridiculously fast nasal congestion relief. The one.
2 in a row! Now he's chasing 3 in a row to start the season as we.
Plexiderm.
Oh, the communists in New York.
Ready to go.
Shameful.
Well, I mean, professionally printed. But in this critical midterm election year, and given Republicans' slimmest of slim majorities in the House, Democrats do see an opening with President Trump's military strikes in Iran.
Donald Trump is taking the United
Shame
States
on
into
you.
war on his own with no authorization from Congress.
He had the authorization from the people of America that elected him, lady.
The president has not made the case.
And you're a crook.
People,
shame on you.
We need to go to war.
Shame on you.
Now, they're demanding that Congress return to D.C. for an immediate vote on a war powers resolution. Now, remember the resolution passed in 1973 over President Richard Nixon's veto in response to the Vietnam War allows a single member of Congress to force a vote to withdraw U.S. troops from a conflict. But the practical reality here is that these resolutions are essentially pointless. In 1983, the Supreme Court ruled that the president could veto them and that his veto could only be overridden by a 2/3 majority in both the House and the Senate. No such resolution has ever overcome a presidential veto. But nevertheless, the president is smart enough to know that he is risking a lot of political capital on Iran, especially since opposing wars of choice was a cornerstone of his original campaign for president. But today, the president said that the bombing, as we said, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary. Here to weigh in is Wisconsin Congressman and retired U.S. Navy SEAL Derek Van Orden. Congressman, President Trump believes that this situation with Iran is easily distinguishable from the war in Iraq, where obviously the Republicans lost the House, the Senate, the presidency, and President Trump himself campaigned so effectively against it. Your reaction tonight, given the success of this military action thus far?
Trump is absolutely acting within his constitutionally mandated authorities and rights, and also within the legislative mandates that he'd been given. So he is in compliance with the War Powers Resolution of 1973. He had 48 hours to notify Congress. He actually did it ahead of time. He has 60 days that he can prosecute this war without asking for authorization from Congress. So, you know, this is not about a midterm election like my Democrats are talking about. It's about the future of America. We've been at war with the Iranians for 47 years. They did the Beirut bombing in 1983. They did the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia. They're responsible for 17 to 20% of the casualties sustained in Iraq. And it's time for them to go, period.
Now, Congressman, when you see the level of coordination here with our intel, Israel's intel, after Iran thought, and Ahmadinejad said this a long time ago, but Iran thought, oh, we were going to root out any of the Mossad agents operating inside Iran. It turned out that their little unit that they developed were actually Mossad. So they were completely flummoxed by what Israel had done to shock the system within Iran on the question of intel. Your reaction to how, again, unbelievably well coordinated this was, when so much politically and economically in terms of human life is on the line here?
Laura, listen, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is probably not with us any longer. And the Iranian regime failed to understand how deeply unpopular they were with not only the Iranian people, but with many members of the Iranian regime. And so for the Mossad to be able to infiltrate the regime actually really wasn't that difficult in the grand scheme of things, because how deeply unpopular this regime has been. They've killed tens of thousands of their own people, and no one likes that. And so right now, I'd just like to speak to the Iranian people. Now's your time. It is. And if you're part of the RGC or any of these other groups of the Iranian government, just give up. Just quit it. Let's stop the killing. Let's make sure that the Iranian people can live in peace and prosperity, and they can no longer be a threat to their neighbors in the Middle East or even Europe. Right now, their strategic missiles can reach Europe right now. And that's got to end. They can't be trusted. They're the world's greatest state sponsor of terrorism, and that's going to stop. Now.
Congressman, this idea of a war powers resolution, I mean, it makes you howl laughing, given the fact that the Democrats never had any problem when Obama was droning people. This is what they trot out to try to give themselves political cover. They say that they would never allow, that Iran should never have nuclear weapons. It's a terrorist regime. But they apparently just want to kick this can down the road, administration after administration.
They do. And listen, it takes bold, strong leadership. What do you think peace through strength looks like? We have been at war with Iran for 47 years. And the only way we're going to get to peace is to have the Persian people, the average everyday Iranian who's been living under the thumb of these mullahs, rise up and take charge of their government.
Right.
And that's the only way this is going to change. I fully support Donald Trump and his leadership. Pete Hegseth, remember they said he was incompetent? He's pulled off some of the most magnificent military operations in the history of the world. Raising Cain, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they said Dan was incompetent. Look at what's taking place here. We're trying to reset the global world order so that we have peace and prosperity. And it takes a bold leader like Donald Trump to do so. And I'm very proud of his work right now.
Amen.
As should every American.
And our prayers always with our troops and our allies in the region. Congressman, thank you very much. And coming up, America's next move, what should it be? And who could help us next? The Dubai airport struck late tonight. Brand new video on that. You're seeing it there. In Abu Dhabi, the airport announcing that one person was killed, 7 others injured after a one-way drone attack there. This is hours after the Kuwait airport was hit. Here with this analysis is Robert Greenway, former senior director for the National Security Council and principal architect of the Abraham Accords. Robert, I've been dying to talk to you all day about this. This is a difficult task, decapitating the leadership and the manner in which it was done. But now, what should America's next move be, given the vacuum of leadership on the ground in Iran?
Well, thanks for having me. Great to talk with you, Laura. I think we're at the dawn of a new Middle East. The president has correctly calculated that the risk associated with removing a regime that's threatened the United States, our partners and allies for the last 47 years, can in fact be done. And in fact, it looks like it has been done. And I don't think we're going to war because I don't think Iran is capable of waging it. I think the next steps are going to be critical, but I think it's important to remember that we're at the dawn of a new Middle East. It is now possible for us to foresee a change in leadership that will allow a regime that doesn't threaten the United States and its neighbors, and also allows the president to achieve the most important thing for the United States, stability of global energy markets and stability of global trade, both of which can impede both Russia's progress and progress in the campaign against Ukraine and restrict their access to resources, and do the same for China, who is the major importer of Iranian oil.
Now, China's imports of Iranian oil is about 13 to 15% of all oil it receives. However, it's cheap oil because of the sanctions that were put on the Iranian regime. But talk very briefly about that and giving us more leverage over the Chinese, given its desire for that cheap flow to continue.
Exactly right. And this is why operations in Venezuela, as well as Iran, are strategically important. It restricts the ability of Russia to translate its oil exports into profit by managing the global volume and the price of oil, which is good for Americans and bad for Russians. And at the same time, it allows us to have enormous leverage over China, which is dependent upon Middle Eastern oil and gas. And so the strategic move here is vastly in favor of the United States. It also, I think, for the first time, prevents us from having to reintroduce tens of thousands of U.S. troops into the region as the shadow of an Iranian threat eclipses.
And Robert, again, President Trump, a lot of people saying, took a big gamble in doing this, given his own past advocacy against wars of choice. But your point throughout this entire day has been, we had no choice, essentially.
That's exactly right. Look, they were threatening us and have been. They've plotted assassination attempts against the United States and the president himself, and obviously he's going to remember that. And I think this represents the beginning of a new era.
Robert, thank you very much. That's it for us tonight.
Amen.
Fox News all night long.
I agree with
for
him.
Breaking news coverage. Thank you for watching. Remember, it is America now and forever. Pray for our troops, pray for the region, and for the people of Iran. Jesse,
pray for everyone. God bless you all.
President Trump says the Ayatollah is dead. Iran's top leadership killed, 40 of them, and over 900 strikes launched in less than 24 hours after U.S. Central Command commissioned Operation Epic Fury, a barrage of overwhelming and unrelenting blows to completely collapse the Iranian regime and destroy their military capabilities. And the Iranians never saw it coming. Human, satellite, and cyber intelligence gave the United States and Israel the perfect picture of the Iranian leadership's whereabouts. We were waiting for them to meet, and this morning they did. What's left of the regime has been retaliating, but they've been largely ineffective. Sources say the air campaign could last weeks. Nate Foy is our national correspondent in Cyprus. Nate.
Hey, Jesse. Yeah, we're in the eastern Mediterranean right now because the airspace over Israel is closed. We'll get in there as soon as we possibly can. But the big news here in the past 15 minutes, more explosions in Tehran. And we're also learning that not only was the supreme leader killed in this morning strike at his compound in Tehran, but according to Iranian state media, several members of his immediate family were also killed, including his daughter, son-in-law, and grandchild. Also, several top leaders in the Iranian regime were killed in that initial strike this morning in Tehran. A U.S. defense official says between 5 and 10 were killed. Israel puts that number at 40. So either way, a massive success. This was also a strike of opportunity. Israel says that they infiltrated the intelligence within Iran's security apparatus. And there's also reports that the White House got an indication that Iran was considering a preemptive strike and that President Trump didn't want them to get the first punch, so he struck them first, and he landed a massive blow to start this off. The IRGC commander also killed, as well as people who worked in Iran's nuclear program as well. But as you mentioned, it was the beginning of massive strikes throughout the day, more than 900 U.S. strikes in the first 12 hours. Israel says this was the largest air campaign in its country's history. As for Iran's response, they have hit both military and civilian targets. Just in the past hour and a half, we learned of a drone attack at Zayed International Airport in Abu Dhabi, where at least one person was killed, 7 others injured. An airport also hit in Bahrain, a hotel in Dubai. Iran hit every country that has a U.S. military base, some of them more friendly, some of them not, like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia took fire at several U.S. bases, and Israel reports 1 death, 121 injured. But the big question is what happens next, with President Trump saying that many in the IRGC are asking for immunity at this point, and they're ready to stop fighting. We'll see if that actually happens. Both Trump and Netanyahu say this is the opportunity for the Iranian people to take back their country. Jesse?
Nate, thank you. Jim Hanson's a former U.S. Army Special Forces and Chief Strategist for the Middle East Forum. Jim, how ambitious is this operation?
It's huge, to quote the man who is running it. And I think it's been tremendously successful. I don't think anyone would have counted on getting confirmation that Khamenei had returned to ambient temperature on the same day of the strikes. And what that does, there is no succession plan. He was losing power, their regime was fading, nobody knows who's set up to be the next leader of what remains of that regime. So this has been a success beyond anything I think the Trump administration, the Israelis, or the world would have expected.
So when do they cry uncle? The president said he's willing to go as long as possible, and I guess we have to wait to see what happens on the ground.
Well, you got to wonder, if you're one of the IRGC leaders who's left, or the Ayatollahs who's left, do you want to be the guy who pokes his head up and says, I'm in charge now? You know, I think some of them are looking at the idea that, hey, I've got a bunch of money stacked in offshore accounts. Maybe it's time to buy a few extra wives and retire. And I think what remains to be seen now is who steps up among the Iranian people. And we heard of a meeting that happened last week in London among 30 leaders of opposition groups who put aside their differences and formed the Iran Freedom Congress, the largest group of opposition leaders. They may be in a position to be the next government if we can get the regime out of the way.
So we're hearing reports that we smuggled some of Musk's Starlinks into the country. We're obviously helping facilitate those communications. Do you have any indication that we have special operators inside Iran?
I would not be surprised in the slightest if in some of the border provinces, you know, the Kurds, the Azeris, and the Baluchis have major beefs and have in the past risen up in large fashion. So it would not be surprising at all for there to be helpers bringing them things that could facilitate both communications and potentially the next step, which is brush fires that require the regime to try and tamp them down. And if they try to do that, it's open season on anything they send to try and shut down those. So I think this could rapidly be moving away from them. I don't want to get ahead of myself. There could be a long slog before the end of this, but I believe the Islamic Republic has hit its expiration date.
So the retaliation strikes hit a bunch of Arab states. Doesn't sound like a very strategic response. Why would they do that? Are they going after U.S. bases?
It wasn't so much the U.S. bases. I think they were trying to drive a wedge between the Gulf states and the U.S. and get them to blame us for the fact that they're taking incoming fire. And I think that was a major miscalculation. You know, they may have actually taken the Abraham Accords, which was an agreement in theory mostly, and turned it into the Abraham Alliance of people who are all united against the Islamic Republic and wishing it to meet its demise so there can be prosperity and security in the region.
It's funny how that works, doesn't it? Jim, great to talk to you as always. Big night. Patrick Bet-David's the founder of Valuetainment. I know you have some personal history here. You want to tell us how you're feeling tonight?
I mean, this is a very special day today, and I'll tell you why. Because since 1979, when these guys took over, Iran's been chaotic for people that live there. 81% of the people there do not want the IRGC. I left Iran July 15th of 89. June 3rd of 89, Khomeini died. Not killed, died. I was in school at Gulbenkian. We're in the streets. I'm trying to find my parents. It was absolutely insane. Eventually, we did. 6 weeks later, we escaped, went to Germany. Fast forward from 89 till today. Now, the Supreme Leader Khamenei being taken out. This isn't like taking out the president or general of the army or even the prime minister or even the Pope. You took out the number 2 to God in their religion. You took out the Supreme Leader. This is a statement to everybody. Brett Baer put out a post about the fact that they took out 40 of their leaders. Think about what that conversation looks like right now to say, listen, guys, you have a couple options. You can either work with us or you're next. Does anybody want his job? Does anybody want to be a Supreme Leader next? Because the target's on you. What do you guys want to do? So that conversation, I believe, is taking place right now. But the world just got safer today because of all the leaders that were taken on. And God willing,
Amen.
if the mission is done, the world's going to be a safer place.
How do the Iranian people feel about this?
Ecstatic, to say the least. They're dancing, they're parading, they're crying, they're emotional. You see the celebration amongst women. Women feel free that finally this cloud that they have over them, that they can't do anything and don't put this on and don't put that on. I mean, this is a massive, massive moment for them. They've been waiting for this for 47 years. And you have to realize for 47 years, we've had a lot of different presidents. We've had a lot of different Iranian leaders that have tried to make this happen. But the one thing that's very different is the president. President made this happen. The Iranian people, I wouldn't be surprised if moving forward in the Iranian community, a lot of the people that couldn't stand the president because they were liberals or, oh my God, he's so this, he's so that, watch how many Iranians who were Democrats could overnight become Republicans saying, I support this man here.
Amen.
How do you think this changes the political dynamic here in the United States? You've kind of seen some wishy-washy comments from Kamala Harris, from Gavin Newsom. Yeah, Ayatollah's a bad guy, but this is an illegal war and I don't support it. How do you think that's going to play?
I mean, they have to play their politics. I'm not surprised. We're going to get a lot more of that. And by the way, here's the part that we have to realize, you know, for viewers that are watching this, I want you to think about this. What is the heaviest decision you had to make that nobody knew about? What is the most recent heavy decision that you have to make? Maybe kids, maybe marriage, maybe finances, maybe you lost a client, maybe you lost a business, and it's carrying all this burden on you, right? Think about everything that we're dealing with. So a few days after Supreme Court rules against the president, publicly everyone's talking about, you know, you got to get this money back. And then he goes to the State of the Union, calm, cool, collected, has a blast, calling them crazy, enjoying himself, celebrating with the, you know, the hockey team that just won, talks for an hour and 48 minutes. And while he's giving the speech, this is what we have to realize. He knows they're about to attack Iran, but no one knows it. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do for a leader. When a leader's the carrying burden, you typically will feel something from them. You felt nothing. This is why Iran, the IRGC, was shell-shocked how it happened. It's not like they did it at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. 8:15, it's like in your face. We're going to do it when you're awake because we want you to know. We went inside. You had a mole. The same way many years ago, we've all seen the movie Donnie Brasco with Joe Pistone that went into the mob for 5 years and 10 months. And then all of a sudden, every one of the mobsters gets caught because this guy started leaking all the information. If there was a mole inside IRGC that's leaking information out, this may be the most humiliating thing that ever happened to these guys. It's a massive loss for them, massive victory for America and the world.
Amen.
Yep, hopefully
Absolutely.
this continues to go as well as the first 24 hours have. PBD, thank you so much.
I agree.
Let's bring in Britt Hume, Chief Political Analyst. Britt, put this into perspective for us. How earth-shattering is this moment?
people did not see coming, and many thought it might never come. It's obviously a huge relief for the Iranian people who have, chafed under this ghastly regime low these many years. It's a great relief for the Iranian diaspora around the world, where, in this country we saw celebrations in the streets of a number of cities. So that's where it is in terms of the immediate fallout from it, and it's gone very well so far.
So far, so good. We all know how history can play out, though. What does this do with the region? Tell me about how this affects the Middle East, but also China and Russia.
Well, this witless decision they made to attack their neighbors, I think was a real strategic mistake, and it helps to further the possibility that the Abraham Accords could spread now between Israel and other nations, not just what it's done so far with the UAE. So I think there's a lot of possibilities there, and of course everything ultimately, Jesse, depends on how this plays out. I think that the regime is likely to fall. I guess it could, the remnants of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps could put up a fight for a while, but it's very likely the regime will fall. Then something has to be.
Gotta plug my phone in here.
And that is the hard part, I think, to predict. There's no obvious opposition leader, because such a leader was never tolerated, and so it's not at all clear who might step into that void there. And how the government could get organized or reorganized, as the case would be. Sectarian fighting could break out. They could have a bloody civil war. So there are a lot of things that could go wrong. Now, it's quite obvious to me, and I'm sure it is to you as well, Jesse, that the planning for this has been pretty meticulous, as was illustrated today. And the administration and its allies in the Middle East and Israel and the others may have something in mind here that they're ready to go with, but we don't know what that is yet. So a lot of uncertainty remains. Regime change has not had a particularly happy history in recent United States times. So there are a lot of uncertainty here that could turn out beautifully. Iran could emerge as a democratic republic, a force for peace in the world, a source of energy, a wealthy, happy country. But such outcomes have tended to be scarce in recent times.
And however it plays out is obviously going to have certain repercussions here in the United States domestically. It's a midterm year. This is obviously a major foreign policy action that people are going to be talking about for quite some time. How does it shape the next few months going into November?
Well, it just shows you the unbelievable speed of the news cycle. The news cycle used to last a while. Just the other day, the Supreme Court struck down the president's tariffs, as your previous guest mentioned. And then after that, of course, we had the State of the Union address, and that was going to dominate everything for a while. And the excitement about that lasted about 3 days. And now we have this, which is bigger than either of those two things, really. Who knows what's going to come next? This president is consequential, to say the least. And who knows what else will happen between now and the midterm election. And if I had to guess, Jesse, I would say that the great likelihood is that the Republicans will lose the House, just because their lead there is so narrow, and the first term of a new president usually means losses for the incumbent party. But who knows? If the economy picks up, and we don't have a closing of the Straits of Hormuz and a spike in gasoline prices and all the other possible things that people worry about, the president could hold the Senate and emerge in pretty good shape after this midterm election. But a lot will depend.
And I pray that he does. Vote Republican wherever you live.
Well, that will be a real feather in his
Support
cap, to be sure.
President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and team.
And beneficial to the world.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to take it one day at a time. Mr. Britt Hume, thank you so much for your analysis. Always good to see you.
You bet, Jesse.
More breaking coverage on Iran next. Leaders after the U.S. and Israel unleashed a barrage of strikes in a historic mission called Operation Epic Fury. Benjamin Hall is our senior Fox News correspondent. Benjamin.
Well, I think that I would agree with almost everyone on one point, and that is that justice has been done. You know, I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. I've seen the work that the Iranian regime have done. I've seen how they have instigated terrorism around the region. 500 plus American soldiers who were killed by their charges in Iraq. So there's no doubt that what happened today was justice done. The big question, you've been saying it, everyone's saying it, is what comes next? Does this drag on to be many weeks? Is there someone waiting in place to take over? Can this move towards a democratic country? And I think that's where we'll all be looking. President Trump has made it very clear. He said earlier this morning, it is the people of Iran who must take to the streets. We have given them this opportunity. We have taken down the regime. Now they must rise up. And we started to see it already today. A number of cities already have seen people coming out onto the streets. But can they grasp this opportunity? I think President Trump has been clear. We will help you. Israel will take care of many of the leaders. We will take care of the ballistic missiles that bother us. But can the people of Iran also now stand up and keep moving forward?
Are the people of Iran armed? I mean, do they have the capability to stand up and overthrow what's left of this regime?
They're not very well armed at this point. We have seen some of them using weapons, but I think what many people are waiting for is who within the regime can come out, who will stand alongside